Hi, Kristen.
Hey Jennine, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I was just thinking about that time when I was like looking for work and like being like having such an unusual skill set, and like really struggling because like I was like a blogger for 8 years and like looking for going back into the workforce after being a mom. It was like nobody wanted to hear from like a has-been blogger. And I just like I hear that people are able to like reinvent themselves for their career.
Yeah, no, I remember you talking about that time and it's mind-boggling because the skills that you developed at that time are valuable. They're still super valuable, right? And so, you know, it's maybe a matter of like sort of repackaging it or talking about it in a way that makes more sense to people who are hiring now. Like maybe if you said you were a blogger, people would be like, "Oh, well that's not relevant anymore." But
Yeah.
maybe if you talked about like the skills that you had, or maybe if you talked about the successes that you had, stuff like that. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
hard to think about. I think we need a professional.
Yeah, and I think that that's what we got today. So we have
Yeah.
a person who is an expert in all of this. Her name is Dilara Casey, and she has the answer. So let's go talk
I'm
to her.
super excited to hear what she has to say.
Yay. Okay, cool. Let's go talk to her. Hi, welcome to the Closet Philosophy Podcast. This is Jennine. I'm a personal stylist.
And this is Kristen. I'm a fashion writer, and we're here to uncover the ways that your personal style is so much more than just clothes.
Whether you realize it or not, what you wear touches on science, psychology, culture, politics, and so much more. Dilara Casey is a strategist, marketer, and writer obsessed with all things careers and the modern workforce. Her work blends sharp insights with a human touch and has been featured in BuzzFeed and Forbes, and her work has been highlighted in USA Today and The Today Show. She has also earned a spot on the Columbus Business First 40 Under 40 list. As the founder of Totally Employable, Dilara has helped hundreds of professionals launch, pivot, and promote their careers with confidence. She also partners with Equipped Women, an organization dedicated to equipping women with the tools and perspectives to thrive at work and beyond. Welcome to the show, Dilara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation today.
Yay.
Let's dive right in. And I'd love to ask you just how you got your start. How did you get started helping people find the right careers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I'm a marketer by trade. It's my day job still and probably always will be because I'm passionate about it. But probably around 10 or 15 years ago, I had people ask me if I'd take a look at their resume. They're like, you know what? You're a good writer, you're in marketing, you probably know how to help me write a good resume. So I started out by just helping some friends with their resume. And I remember one person who had been laid off, and this was before layoffs were as rampant as they are now. Like getting laid off was a really huge, unique, rare deal, and just the confidence they got after me helping with their resume. I was like, this is something I'm really enjoying. So first start off with friends, then friends of friends. And then it got to the point where I had so many people asking. I told my husband, I'm like, I think I'm going to have to ask people to pay me to do this because it's starting to take up some time and I love it, but I just didn't know where to start. So I just started kind of putting myself out there as a resume writer and career consultant for others. And it just grew from there. It's all still been growing pretty much by word of mouth. I don't do, any advertising. I just have great people who have a good experience and they tell their friends and it's grown from there.
That's so
Wow.
exciting.
So you're doing a full-time marketing job plus this work.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That sounds
It's a
like a
lot.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It all
What
balances out.
what industry do you do marketing in?
So I work for a tech company that creates tools and resources to help people measure human movement. So whether it's
Mhm.
performance movement, like athletes or researchers or clinicians who are helping people reach their movement goals, we create technology, hardware, and software to help enable that. So
Oh, okay.
That sounds
yeah,
cool.
it's very B2B. So I like the more like B2C higher touch point stuff that I do with the careers as well. Good
Nice.
balances. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That
Well,
is cool.
yeah. So, like a lot of our listeners, they are in midlife, either returning to work after a break or starting something entirely new.
Mhm.
What's like the first step that you recommend when somebody feels both ready and terrified to make a career change?
Yeah, I think those things are the same almost. What I'm seeing a lot, especially with, I'm going to say like older millennials, younger Gen X, is it's usually not their choice. They're being nudged into that direction. Like I said, whether there's a big, huge company-wide layoff, whether their company's gone out of business, or they're just really burnt out and they've reached a point where they have to make a change for their own mental health and sanity. So I think the first part of it, I always tell people, is like, take a beat. Like, I know it's not always an affordable thing to do. I know that is a little bit of a luxury, but if you are laid off and you're given a decent severance and you're able to collect unemployment, take a week or two and just reflect on what you want to do and reflect on who you are, because sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle a lot, and start thinking about what you want to do next. And so the most important part of that whole process, I think, is self-reflection and taking a moment to do that. And sometimes you need to step away from where you're at to have that level of clarity. And stepping away might mean a day, a week, a month. Some people, it might mean a year. But again, I understand that that is a huge luxury not everybody has. I
Hmm.
have had people, though, who have quit their corporate job and gone and worked at Costco for a year and, said it's the most galvanizing year of my life, because when I clocked in, I worked, and when I clocked out, I didn't. And it gave me the bandwidth to think about and reinvent what was next. So I definitely recommend to just take a minute and think about who you are and what you want to do next before you start putting yourself out there, because you're not going to be putting your best self forward if you don't know who you want to be next.
Yeah, and that's like really interesting because like a lot of times people think like, okay, I need to do that. Like I'm actually in the middle of doing that right now. And so some of it is like really hard to like know where to even begin because it's like, who am I? Like that's such a big word, like big question.
Yeah. Well, I think it just ladders back to the values that you have for yourself. And we are all really practitioners of our own values, but we don't realize it. Your
Hmm.
values are how you prioritize things in your life. And you're doing it subconsciously and not really realizing it. So an exercise that I have gone through personally, and I revisit it every couple years, is I just get a bunch of Post-its and I write down everything that's important to me in this chapter, this moment in this series of my life. What's important to me, my health, my family, whatever, organic food, whatever. It can be as frivolous as some might think, but if it's important to you, it's important. Write it all down. You'll probably have 20 or 30 Post-its full of stuff.
Mm.
That's a lot to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I put all those Post-its on the back of my bedroom door, and every day I gave myself permission to take one off.
Hmm.
And so I'd wake up one morning and be like, you know what? Organic food is important to me, but I can't make my life revolve around organic food. When it's
Mm.
available, I'll take it. And when it's not, I'll just eat a regular apple and live my life. I gave myself permission.
Yeah.
So after a couple weeks, you get down to 3, 4, 5 Post-it notes on the back of the door. Those are the ones that you haven't removed because they're a priority to you. They're important to you. And once you've
Mm.
narrowed it down to that, it's really easy to say no to all the other stuff because you've already given yourself permission to do that. And
Mhm.
yes to the things that matter most, because I believe yes to one thing is no to 1,000 things. So you have to understand where your yeses and nos are.
Mhm.
Once you've done that, you've identified what your values are essentially. And now you can start to build what's next from that. So I went through a really galvanizing time in my life. I had just had my daughter, my second child. She's 12 now, so it was a while ago. And I was working like crazy. I wanted that corner office. I wanted, all the things that come along with that. I wanted to be in the fittest shape of my life. I wanted all these things. And I was chasing after 30 Post-it notes, right?
Hmm.
And I
Mhm.
had a newborn baby and I had a 2-year-old son. And I actually was working myself to death. I passed out at her baptism, like fell over flat in the middle of the pew and
Oh
had to
my
be
God.
rushed to the ER.
Oh my God.
And we get there and they're like, what are you doing?
Oh my
Yeah.
Um,
God.
and so that was a moment where I'm like, I have to start saying no to things.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's when I went through that exercise. And that's actually a marketing brand exercise that I learned,
Mhm.
but I did it on myself.
Huh.
Yeah.
And that was when I came up with the 3 things that are the most important to me. And I allow myself to revisit that from time to time as I'm going through different seasons and chapters of my life. And sometimes they change and sometimes they don't. But the same 3 things have pretty much remained that whole time. So, number 1, my health.
Mm-hmm.
Health to me has changed over the years, and we'll probably talk about that. But number 2, my tribe. Some people say family, some people say community, whatever, but my tribe, my people that I live for, that live for me, that's my tribe. Some of them are blood, some of them aren't. And then the third is my impact.
Mm.
And how I view that, it could happen through my job or career. It could happen through my volunteerism. It could happen through my consultancy, whatever it is. Impact is important to me. Those people in my life are important to me, and my health is important to me, because if I don't have that, I can't do the other 2 things. So those have been kind of like my 3 main lines for a while now. I've revisited them and they have changed, but I kind of keep going back to that. So I urge people to go through that exercise and have an honest conversation with yourself about what really matters. And once you do, that becomes your North Star for the yeses and nos in your life, and you've given yourself permission to already say yes and no. So it kind of takes away the guilt.
Yeah. So, so you've helped a lot of professionals pivot successfully. And so I'm wondering, what patterns do you see in women? I don't know if you work specifically with women or if it's women and men who make the most confident and sustainable career shifts.
Ooh, that's a great question. I predominantly work with women. I think a little
Okay.
bit by default. I think women want to talk to women, but
Hmm.
I work with anyone who wants to figure it out. I think the biggest barrier for women is actually confidence. You know, there's this old metric. I don't know there's no one to cite because it's probably an urban legend by now, where if there's a job that says there's 10 things you have to do, a man will apply if he's got 4 or 5 of them. A woman will only apply if she has all 10. So I do think there's a little bit of confidence building that comes through with it. I think that the biggest thing that I see, sorry, I feel like I'm kind of like straying from your original question.
No, no, it was just it was kind of like a multi-part question, so I
Yeah.
understand why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we're kind of looking to discover how like the people who make the most like sustainable and like the career shifts that work out for them really
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
Like, is there a pattern that you see for them?
Yeah.
Is there like something that they've lined up in advance that makes that happen?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think one is the acknowledgement that they want to change and they need to change and they have a valuable reason why.
Mm.
Number 2, they're open to changing themselves to make that happen. And number 3, they are embracing the plan, knowing that every single step is not solidly outlined. You're kind of building the plane while you're flying it. So there is a little bit of uncertainty that they embrace.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I worked with someone who was forced out of their job. They had a layoff. And they said, I hate this anyway. Like, I hated this job anyway. I was just I was dialing it in every day. I was just doing what I had to do to pay my bills. And if I could, do things all over again, I would work for a nonprofit organization and I would do fundraising and development. And I said, well, I think you'd be great at that. You have 0 experience in fundraising and development, right? And they said, yes, but it's what I want to do. And I said, okay, let's embrace the fact that you have skills you need to develop. You have work that you need to do. And you also are going to probably take a pay cut to do this. Like, are you on board with that? Yes. And so then we put a plan together, and it was all, obviously like harvesting skills that they were maybe not acknowledging in their original resume that were relevant to doing fundraising for nonprofits. Also just doing some more networking and connecting with people and letting them know that they're there. It's not necessarily who it's who knows you. And then having a little bit of tough skin of knowing you're probably going to get a lot more people saying no to you for this role than you would in your previous role because you are starting fresh. But you have transferable skills. And most importantly, you have a lot of soft skills that I think are super valuable right now that people aren't aren't acknowledging within themselves that are really valuable for employers. So they made the switch. They made the switch. It took between like 6 and 8 months to make the switch, but I think they're better off and happier than they would have been if they would have gotten back to what they were doing previously. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Wow, that is really cool. I mean, it's hard to make those. And and this is like kind of leads into our next question. Like career breaks can leave women doubting their skills and their relevance. How do you help people identify and communicate the value of everything they've done, even though it's not a traditional job?
Yeah. I think the toughest part of evaluating and acknowledging everything they've done is that no one's keeping track of it. If you're not keeping track of it, no one's keeping track of it. So I tell everybody this: keep track of your projects and accomplishments. Get a little Google Drive file and start putting stuff in there, whether it's a spreadsheet or whatever. Reevaluate your resume every 3 to 6 months. So hopefully you've done some valuable work during that time. You should be, make sure you take a look and put it on there. I think one of the things that I always say, and this sounds kind of like doomsday, but your will and your resume are two things you only seem to update when you are in distress.
That's so true.
So get ahead of the curve. Number one, go make sure your will is updated, but also update your resume when you are gainfully employed, when you're feeling proud of your work, when you are, when all cylinders are firing, when you have access to metrics at your job, when you have, the ability to access reports and things that you've done or anything that's valuable that would help build, your credibility on your resume. So I always say to make sure that you have that lined up, because you never know when you're going to need it. There are people who have walked into meetings thinking they're getting a raise and they end up losing their job. I mean, that's how volatile the market is right now. So you just never know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that for me, one of the hardest things for me when I was trying to get back into work was I was a blog, I was a graphic designer for a long time ago, but then I became a blogger for 8 years. And so the majority of my career, I was a blogger, and I took a break for a number of years, but then coming back, it's nobody wants to hear from a blogger that was popular 10 years ago. Nobody, and those job skills, it was I was really surprised how little people cared about those skills.
Well, the skills that you have are super valuable right now. Content creation is huge, storytelling is huge. Being able to disseminate information and communicate it to the masses is very valuable. Those are all really valuable skills. But yeah, if you wrap it up, I was a mommy blogger, people don't understand people don't understand everything that went into doing that. So I think a lot of it has to also do with how you label yourself is also super valuable. And you have complete agency over that. Your company might call you the marketing coordinator, but if you were the person that, handled all of the influencer marketing and did all of the metrics and analytics, you could say that you were the analytics and influencer marketing specialist. You can have some agency over your title, as long as it's relevant to what you did and it is honest. Because I do see this a lot with companies, and I know you were self-employed, but I think how you label yourself is something you have agency over. And I have had this happen a lot, especially with women that I've worked with who haven't gotten the promotion they deserved, who haven't gotten the title or the level that they earned for whatever reason, that they weren't appropriately titled. And so you do have some flexibility with that. And a lot of career coaches and resume writers and even hiring managers will agree with that. So I'm not saying to go in and say, I was president of the company when you were the janitor, but if there is a specialization that you had in your role that's not reflected in your title, you can absolutely retitle that and claim that title for yourself.
That's interesting. It also sounds like, especially in Jannine's case, highlighting the actual skills rather than the title could be really helpful. Saying you created content, and for example.
Yeah, the skills and also the outcomes. You launched and drove a community of X number of followers with X amount of engagement. You coordinated X number of brand deals. You amplified, there's a lot of metrics that are tied to what you do. And when you lead with, metrics businesses love metrics, so if there's anything that you can do to show the metrics and how you drove things forward, absolutely do it and own it. And another thing for women in particular is I've seen this with almost all of my clients. They don't claim those metrics. They're like, well, I was on the team that did the thing. And I said, you helped build this program. You drove same store sales by 30%. Like, you were part of the campaign that drove that. Like, you can claim that. So I think there's also a little bit of just general modesty around claiming the work and claiming the progress and, the outcomes that you've created.
Yeah. I see that and stuff. I think that, with some of my experience, like I had this community, like independent fashion bloggers, and we had like our site got like 1 million views a month, and we had a community of 68,000 people, and like we did conferences at New York Fashion Week, and then was like generating like $250,000 of revenue. And like still companies were like,
right. But if you, but if you say blogger, and I did this, versus media specialist versus content director versus, paid media partner, content lead. Those are, I think, I've talked about this with a couple of my marketing friends, like the term blogger has evolved so much over the last 10 years. I think about, one of the original mommy bloggers, Heather Armstrong, she kind of invented the word blogger, and blogger was just this person who had a website and they posted pictures and stories on it. But then it started to evolve into, from a blogger to influencer, which I think still exists in some shapes and forms. Some people don't like being called influencers, some do. Then it's evolved into like content creator, and it's also now kind of evolving into like affiliate partner or like media partner. So the title kind of keeps shifting and changing. I mean, this role has been around for 10 to 15-ish years, and it seems like every 2 years there's a new term people are using to try to identify what this role does, because it's so expansive. This role does everything. This role is a marketing director who's an individual contributor, essentially. So it's hard to nail down.
And there's also a lot of potential for sort of a negative take on that role.
Yeah.
So I think that might be another reason why the title has evolved so much, because like there's a sort of a sometimes negative connotation with like influencer, like, it's like vacuous and you're just posting pretty pictures and it's not that important or whatever. So then you try to like mold the title to make it sound a little bit less like that kind of like negative take.
Yeah, there's a lot of business acumen that goes into these roles that's not getting acknowledged.
Yeah.
So it absolutely makes sense to adjust the title to reflect that. And I think it's deserved. I think it's totally deserved.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a little bit of a tangent, but do you remember Ami's song?
Yeah. Song of Style.
Yeah. And she's still doing, she's an influencer now. I guess she used to be a blogger. I don't know. But she was like the first one to be like, to say to brands, I'm creating a whole advertising campaign for you and you need to pay me.
Right.
More
than a free dress. Like, here's a free dress to do this.
Yeah. And she got a lot of pushback, but she was like the first one that I know of who was like, and she was open about it. She told her followers, like, this is and she shared that with other influencers too. Like, ask for what you're worth. Like, the work that you're doing is valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, for people who are listening, like how to translate that into your life, it's like if you don't have like a traditional job like thing, like even if you were like, say, like in the PTA or something like that, like you could use those like roles that you played in the PTA, like on your resume, or particular ways to like make yourself like more employable.
Yeah, I think another thing too, people discredit is volunteerism. And I think volunteerism should absolutely go on your resume. If you've taken a break from full-time employment, but you have done things in the community and have volunteered somewhere, you're still working, you know, doesn't matter if you're getting paid or not, you're still working. And honestly, if you're working for free, that's extra valuable work because you're a volunteer. You know, I had a client not too long ago who had taken a pretty significant break from her professional career to raise her children, but she did a ton of volunteerism and she was really hesitant to put it on her resume. And you know, we put it in there. I said, let's talk this through because, you know, you were giving vaccines during COVID. Because she was a healthcare professional prior.
Oh, wow.
I said, you were doing like frontline work as a volunteer. Imagine how valuable you would be as a paid employee in the healthcare system today. So I think sometimes we just think, oh, I was just helping out. I just helped out at the PTA. We only raised, you know, $65,000 at this, you know, what, you know, make sure you get credit for that.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
And so speaking of like, you know, coming back, like what's your perspective on ageism in hiring and promotion? And how can women in midlife position themselves to stand out in spite of it?
That's tough.
Yeah.
It does exist. It absolutely exists. I have in previous roles, I've been in conversations where we're hiring a candidate and someone would say, well, they're probably only going to work for like 5 or 6 more years, or that, you know, I'm like, wait, time's out. Wait, we can't cast any notions, you know? So whether people realize they are exercising ageism or not, I think is one problem. Like some people don't even think they are.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. The second thing too is like, it's a lot younger than we think. At the age of 40, I think it's the federal mandate is if you're 40 years or older, you could be subjected to ageism. So I'm like, wait, okay.
Yeah.
So how to combat it in the hiring process, I think is, I don't know. I get a lot of mixed reviews on the advice that I give. This is advice I practice and give, and people can take it or not, but it does exist. So number one, if you are in your 40s, there's a high likelihood you have over 20 years of experience. I only recommend putting 10 to 15 on your resume. Most jobs in your field are saying 10 to 15 years, right? They're not saying they want someone with 35 years of experience.
Right.
So if the job says 10 to 15 years, put 10 to 15 years on your resume. I also recommend not putting your graduation date for high school or college on your resume, unless you graduated in the last 3 years, because then you're entry level and they want to know when you graduated. So there are some things that I do, and some people are like, well, that's deceptive. And, you know, my goal when I'm helping people get a job is I need you to get an interview. Like my goal in helping create your resume and giving you the confidence you need to apply for that job that feels like a long shot or that's maybe a career pivot for you. We've done all this work. We need to get you through the front door. We've, you know, and sometimes you have to be creative, and it's not deceptive. It's just, they said 10 to 15 years. Here's the 10 to 15 years of experience I have. They said you have to have a college degree. Here's the degree I have. You don't need to know the year I got it. So there are some things that I recommend doing from a resume perspective that help combat ageism. But then people say, you know, well, once I get on the Zoom call and they see my white hair, you know, and I said, well, you know, this is where your skills and your soft skills and experience come into play. And that's when it becomes your competitive edge. You know, a lot of folks who are entering the workforce right now have really had a tough time developing soft skills. I think COVID has really impacted this current generation of young professionals, and it's nobody's fault, but there's a lot of soft skills that they are behind on that they're trying to make up for. So if you're an older professional, you have those soft skills. You're a strong communicator, you know how to close the loop, you have experience with different types of office technology. So those are some soft skills that I'd recommend playing up. But at the end of the day, I also tell people if the company doesn't want to hire you because they think you're old, then you don't want to work there anyway. They're not valuing you for the skills and experience that you bring to the table. They're valuing you because they want to see how much they can get out of you, how little they can pay and how much work they can get. So there has to be some alignment there. And those are checks and balances for both the candidate and for the company, I think.
That's such a good point.
That makes sense. That makes sense. What about as far as presenting yourself? Do you ever give women advice on, you know, updating their wardrobes or anything like that so it aligns with the new career path they'd like to be on, but also feeling authentic to themselves at the same time?
Yeah, I don't give a ton of advice. It is funny. I did have someone on TikTok like message me about an outfit for an interview. I'm like, I'm not the most fashionable person.
Jennine is the one for that.
I know. I was like, Jennine. I think we are in a really kind of fortunate time where personal expression is more widely accepted than it has been in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, when I started working, you had to wear suits to work, which is just like, I can't even imagine wearing a suit right now. Like my head would explode.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember how uncomfortable and like stuffy I was and how constricted I felt and how I felt like I had to act when I was wearing it. And it just was gross and expensive and just something, an investment that made no sense in my life at that time. So when I talk to people now, sometimes they do ask for some advice and I say, wear what makes you comfortable and confident. And obviously you want to be conscientious about certain office norms during your interview. Like I wouldn't wear a tube top or a super short skirt. I actually think TikTok is a really good resource for, wardrobe recommendations and for how to, I've told people to check out Jennine's TikTok actually, of just like ways you can have some self-expression, but still come across as polished. But yeah, I think we're in kind of a fortunate time. Like, you don't have to go to the mall and buy a suit and heels, and you still want to retain some of your identity in your creativeness and personality and how you dress. So I tell people wear what you're comfortable in. And actually, some companies have recommendations on their website. If you're applying for a larger corporation, you can Google like the name of the corporation and interview process or like interview guidelines. And a lot of times they have it on their website, and they even recommend like jeans and a t-shirt is fine or things like that. So depending on the company, I'd try to Google and see what you come up with too.
That's good to know.
This is
You
just
might
like
even be able to Google and find it elsewhere, like, I don't know, like on Reddit or
On the
something
Reddit
like that,
thread.
or yeah,
Yeah.
or the Glassdoor, or maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know if Glassdoor has stuff like that.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I mean it's so hard because it's like you can't it's not like back in the old days where you can sit in the lobby of the place and see what people are wearing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And like you
Yeah.
can't really do that anymore because everything's online now.
There's like
So
not
it's
even
like
a lobby.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
The detective work is like all digital now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think some companies are pretty good about that. And, 9 times out of 10, you are doing a Zoom call, your first interview, or even your first couple or all of them. So just having something nice on top is even just fine.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So like in your career, how have you like ever used style as a strategic tool?
I love this question. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, like I said, earlier in my career, I was doing like sales before I got into marketing. So it was a suit. It was very like, it was a man's world, gray, black, brown, whatever, boring
hmm
suit. And then when I crossed over to the marketing side, there was a lot more creativity in there and it was embraced, but I was still in a corporate role. So it was just kind of this like blend. And I realized that no matter what I wore, if I had red lipstick on, I felt really confident. So I just started telling people like red lipstick is my power suit. So for a very long time, if you saw me anywhere doing anything, I was wearing red lipstick. If I wanted to own the room, that's what I would wear. And I could do it in jeans and a t-shirt. I could do it in a suit. I could do it, whatever. So that was a big like defining moment of my personal style as a professional. I've lightened it up to some pink now. But I think like a kind of like little side personal story I think would be valuable to share right now. So during that time where I was just starting to get on the corporate ladder, I had my first big corporate job and I had my nose pierced, which was acceptable at my previous jobs. And I read the employee handbook and it didn't say anything about piercings or tattoos. So I felt like I was safe. And I had a leader pull me aside and said, "Hey, just real quick, like, I know your nose ring isn't very big, but I think you should take it out because I don't think people are going to take you seriously here." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Am I allowed to wear it though?" And they said, "You're allowed to wear it. Like, there's nothing against it, but I personally don't think people will take you seriously if you have a nose ring in."
Huh.
And I was young and impressionable, and I was like, you know what? I really want people to take me seriously, so I'm gonna take my nose ring out. So in the morning, like take my nose ring out in the car, like sit out my dashboard, go into work, come out, and put it in, and go home. And then that got to be a pain. So then I'd take it out like Sunday night and then put it back in on Friday evening. And then that got to be a pain. And then I just like totally quit wearing it altogether. Totally abandoned it. And also, one other side note, I was like 8 years old when I wanted to get my nose pierced. Like, I was begging my mom every birthday.
Oh,
So the day I
Wow.
turned 18, I went to the piercing studio and got it. Like, I
Wow.
literally, it was just something I always wanted. I was just thought, self-expression, whatever.
Yeah.
So years had kind of passed, and I started, getting these roles with more and more responsibility and felt like I needed to be taken seriously. And I really missed not wearing my nose ring.
Hmm.
And then in 2020, during COVID, I was diagnosed with cancer, which was just a whole like bingo card item I did not expect to have.
whoa.
And that is the ultimate moment of like having your identity go. I mean, I'm known for my red hair. I had no red hair. I had no eyebrows. I had no
Oh my God.
eyelashes. Like you're
Hmm.
stripped bare of your entire identity when you get cancer. It's not about losing your hair. It's about not having an identity. It's about being sick and looking sick. It's about how people look at you differently. You lose your power. You lose you're it's the time when you're actually most powerful because you're going through, hell with treatment and everything,
Hmm.
but you feel like you've lost all of your power.
Mm.
And I remember a couple of days after my hair started growing back and it was like sprouting out, I told my husband, I said, I'm going to go run an errand tonight just by myself. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm just perfect. And I went and got my nose re-pierced.
Oh,
Amazing.
wow.
And I came home and my kids were like, what?
Wow.
Um, and I just was like, I just wanted to like reclaim that piece of myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
That can hold so much power. I bet it felt
yeah,
good.
it
Yeah.
felt amazing.
Yeah.
And then my hair grew back and my eyebrows grew back and everything started to come back to normal. But I felt like that was just like the little like click I needed. And so I say this because like everybody's got their thing, their one
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
And you need to protect that at all costs. And I don't
Hmm.
I don't care if it's like the crazy shoes you like to wear or having really long nails that are, hard to work with or having funky glasses or like whatever it is that makes you you. Don't ever let anyone take it away from you. And if they say that it's going to make you seem less serious or less respected or whatever, it's because they think that. It's not because they know that. It's because they
Hmm.
think that.
Yeah.
And I would challenge that. And guess what? I'm a marketing director. I've got my nose pierced.
Hmm.
People still respect me.
Of
Hmm.
course.
I've given
Yeah.
career advice to hundreds of thousands of people who have had successful roles that are even way beyond anything I could ever accomplish. And I
Hmm.
did it with a nose ring in, and the world didn't fall apart. So when it comes
Hmm.
to your self-expression and style, I think everyone has like their one or two very few precious things, and I would just advise to never surrender them, ever.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
great story. That's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the one thing that people always say is like they don't feel like authentic. And it is really interesting too because like they'll say like I don't feel like authentic at work. I don't feel like I can be myself. And then so I don't feel like I can wear what I want. And then when we go into like put together their outfits, like, you can do it like in all kinds of like interesting ways. Like maybe wear like a blazer with a concert t-shirt underneath, or
Yeah.
maybe wear like a vintage dress or something like that is different, that really says you. And I think that I don't know. I mean, maybe on the East Coast it's different, but on the West Coast,
Yeah.
like basically you could wear whatever you want these days.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's not very many jobs where you have to wear a specific, unless you're like a corporate attorney or something like that. Like you're not
Right.
going to have to wear specific clothes, especially for women have a lot more leeway than men do.
We
So,
do, which I think is like good and also overwhelming, right?
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
have this really edited list to choose from. And that's why when you go to something that's business casual, you'll see every guy's wearing like a blue collared shirt and khakis because there's like five options. And then
Mhm.
there's this, a complete like, spectrum of things that women could be wearing. So
Mm.
I think it is a little bit, I think it's great, but also it can be overwhelming for women too to try to figure out what to wear. So I just say, like, if you've got like one or two precious things, hold them tight and you can just build whatever else you want around it. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I've been doing. I don't know if it's working or not, but it does make it easier for me to get dressed in the morning. So it's a win for me.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's talk for a second about AI. We're kind of running out of time, but we're
Okay.
okay. But I would love to talk about AI because it's a trend in the workplace that is very rapidly changing
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And specifically for our demographic, is there anything that we can be doing now to prepare and stay relevant?
Yeah, embrace it. Literally, like the more you resist, the harder it's going to be for you. I think the more you embrace it and understand how to use AI and how to use chat tools. And here's the thing too, a lot of software and tools that you're already using probably have AI embedded in them already. You don't realize
Yeah.
it, like spell check,
Yeah.
So I think once you just understand how it can help amplify your work and support your work and make it better, the better off you'll be. And what we are seeing specifically in like the marketing world is we're actually seeing AI being used a lot less in content because the soul of the content is not there. Like
Mm.
companies are like, yeah, we just like made all these posts on Chat GPT and posted them and like got zero engagement.
Oh,
But
interesting.
when a human wrote them and edited them, there's just that thread that of
Mm.
soul that comes through. So I do see AI helping enable more automations. I do see it helping mitigate monotonous tasks. I do see it kind of being a little bit of an assistant to an individual contributor to help them amplify their footprint in the work they're doing.
Mm.
I know there are a lot of people who are saying it's going to take my job. Maybe. I honestly think that AI right now in the workforce is being used to fill jobs that nobody wants in manufacturing and in skilled trades and in the stuff that people don't want to do. So I see that being the frontline impact in our workforce first. And that's going to take several years to roll out and get implemented before it starts attacking the office job of the data analytics person who is interpreting reports and making strategic recommendations for the company that's in the middle of a reorg.
Mm.
AI could probably give a recommendation. It's going to be pretty crappy. But to
Yeah.
have, AI robotics created to pick and pack in a warehouse where they can't seem to get enough people to help fulfill orders is the first line, I think, where we're going to
Mm.
see the impact in our workforce.
Well,
Oh.
I like hearing that about what you said about content and how like people creating content are not, finding that it's very engaging to create the content that
Right.
way. Because like being a writer, I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty
It's
threatening,
coming
but
after me. Yeah.
It's coming.
yeah, but at the same time, it's so weird because it can do all these very complicated things, but then sometimes I try to get it to do very basic things and it like can't do it.
Right.
Like just as an example, we always create these quotes for the podcasts,
Hmm.
and I asked it to pull out quotes that it found really compelling that we could use in an Instagram slideshow.
Yeah.
And so it spits out this verbiage and I'm like, that doesn't really sound like things that she said.
Mm.
So I ask it, are these like exact words that the person said? And they're like, oh, thank you for catching that. It's actually like
Made up. Yeah.
like
Yeah,
a paraphrased. And I'm
I
like, okay,
know.
when I say
Yeah.
quote, I mean it has to be the exact words. And I mean, I went through it with this thing like 5 times and I was like,
Right.
guess I have to do this myself
Right.
because it
I
Yeah.
was
mean,
not working.
humans want to engage with humans at the end of the day. I mean,
Yeah.
there are just instances in our life, in our world, where the human touch is still needed, and it's going to become more valuable. And maybe I'm going to be way off on this workforce prediction, but I usually do like 10 predictions at the beginning of every year.
Hmm.
But and I'm pretty right on most of them so far. But
That's
for this
cool.
particular, this is a mid-year prediction. My mid-year prediction is and also when we talk about AI, I think people are a little bit speaking really broadly about it, like certain language models for certain applications, right? I think there's certain applications for it. So a robot is not going to write a very good book about people because it's a robot.
Hmm.
And we talked earlier about the blogger, influencer, content creator kind of journey that all of those professionals have gone on. And guess what? People love them people would rather buy from them than a robot. People want to engage with them. You know, at the end of the day, what we all yearn for is human connection and feeling love from one another and feeling acceptance from one another. And like a robot can never do that. So I think it's going to help. It's going to help enable to fill some gaps in the workforce that are really sorely needed. And I think that's where the front line is. I think for a lot of the blue collar and creative roles, I think it's a tool and a resource and an enabler. And the sooner that we acknowledge it as such instead of an enemy, the faster it'll go into that bucket and not attack our roles and attack our jobs.
That's
That makes
really
sense.
like good to hear, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, I have mixed feelings about AI. Like sometimes
Yeah.
like I use it occasionally, but like I don't like I went down in the deep rabbit hole with it and because I didn't want to be like a Luddite to say like, oh no, like I'm not going to use AI, is going to rot my brain. Like I didn't want to
Right.
go down that route, but I also didn't want to be like, oh, AI for everything. But I got really into it and I felt like, you know, that human connection was like, you know, what my audience wants to hear. And also, you know, and also it doesn't, yeah, I really felt like it's not there at that point where it could
Yeah.
really replace a person.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that emotion, it doesn't have that
It
feeling,
doesn't.
and it doesn't have that ability to come up with novel ideas like we can. And so,
Exactly. And read between the lines of where the emotion lies and things. And I
mhm,
think like if you treat it like the enemy, it will be. If you treat it like a resource, it will be. So I just
mhm,
think really it's up to us. And also they are teaching AI classes now at the university. Like my intern just told me that they are starting to teach how to use AI. At first they were totally against it. They weren't letting, you know, the students touch it. They said this is going to rot your brain and prevent you from learning. And now they're finding ways to use it as a learning tool. And I imagine in the next couple of years it'll start rolling out at like high schools too. I mean, I just see it as a tool and a resource. If that's what we treat it as, that's what it shall be.
yeah, so cool. So
Hopefully. Yeah.
yeah, I want to ask you about like equipped women,
Mhm.
and so like you talk about helping women thrive both at work and beyond. What are
Mhm.
some of the most powerful mindset shifts or tools you've seen transform women's professional journeys?
So I play a very small role in Equipped Women as a consultant. So I am their like in-house resume expert. Equipped Women was founded by Kelly Mooney. If you're not familiar with her, she is just a force to be reckoned with. She was the CEO of Resource Amirati, which was the nation's largest digital agency,
Mm,
the first agency to launch e-commerce on a website for like Victoria's Secret. Eventually the organization got acquired by IBM and she's kind of circled back into her career and decided to launch Equip Women to help equip women with the tools and resources they need to be successful. And when she tapped me to come on board, you know, the answer was like, yes. I don't need, you know, when they say if you can get a chance to get on a rocket ship, you don't ask where your seat is. So she and her partner work really hard to create cohorts for women. So there are courses you can take, there's instructional guides you can use. There's just a lot of different branches of that organization that people can tap in and out of during different seasons of their career to help them thrive. The thing that I think is just the most important that she shares is a ton of research. I think when you see the numbers in black and white, it's very empowering. When you see how much more money men are making than women for the same job, it lights a fire under you one way or another, right?
mm,
When you see some of the disparities in, you know, C-suite level roles between men and women, it really some people get discouraged, but she's using it as an encouraging, like, let's fill those seats with more women.
mm,
Let's help you get what you need to get that promotion, to get that raise, to get to where you want to go. And so it's definitely a community that I really believe in is going to help create some equality across, you know, the gender bias that exists. And hopefully, I don't want to say level the playing field. There's a lot of work to do, but definitely create more opportunities for more women and empower more women to go after those opportunities.
that's so cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So we have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so what's one way that you dress for the life you're walking into, whether it's a role, a big goal, or a mindset shift?
Dress like literally how I dress.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to start from the bottom up. like shoes.
Nice.
I think like my shoe choice will dictate what else I'm gonna wear. So like I decide that day. And I think part of that is just ingrained in me as a marketer, because there's a lot of dirty work we do that people don't realize. Like, you know, back in the day we're like putting together crates to ship for conferences. Like you're not gonna show up in heels and a dress to do that. So think about like what I want to accomplish that day, what I'm gonna do, and like the shoes I need to do it. And then I dress from the bottom up from there. And I found at this point in my life, less is more. I'd rather invest in pieces that are quality, that are sustainable, that I know where they come from. And Jennine, you really inspired me to go back to the thrift store. Like I took a break from the thrift store a long time ago, but like I go to the thrift store and try to find pieces there. But stuff that I think if you feel good in something, you look good in it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really consult the mirror as much as I consult like my mind. Does this feel good? Sure. I'm going to look good in it if it feels good.
Yes.
And I just go from there.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel good in something, you're not going to look good at it. So that's really great advice. So thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, this was awesome. It was lovely to talk to both of you, and you asked some really great questions. I loved it. Loved the conversation.
Awesome.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. It was so fun.